Could the reverse be at play? That foreign institutional investors, yes, they've been sellers, then they continue to sell, but last 10, 15 days, the tide has turned. And now FOMO actually could hit them, which is that they could be forced to make a comeback.
So I think if you think slightly ahead, if you think 3-5 years, I think India could emerge, could enjoy larger allocation in the scheme of things for foreign investors. Because if you look at the EM basket, I think India is probably one of the best placed economies, countries in the EM basket. And I think therefore over time we should continue to attract bigger flows. So I would not, whether it is FOMO or whether it is whatever, but I think look at India, it's a 3.5-4 trillion economy growing at 6-7-8%, and it ticks almost all the boxes. So I would say that anyone with a medium to long term perspective would want to be not overweight India. I mean, they would want to be overweight India.
You've been a big advocatory of banks, and especially banks, big banks and banks which have a strong CASA and a big balance sheet. Now that trade has worked like a charm now. What was more like a consensus view has now become a consensus trade, which is overweight financials. But do you think even though it's a consensus view and a consensus trade, the consensus prices has not reached there?
So I think, yes, most people agree now that, and the stock prices have moved sharply. So most people agree that banks are in a sweet spot. Balance sheets are very clean, credit growth is reasonable, and profitability is holding up well. So I would say these banks should continue to do well, and the gap in valuations across banks, the earlier what we used to call the retail banks and the corporate banks, that has now converged. And actually that divide is becoming less relevant now, because the asset side of almost all the large banks is increasingly looking similar to each other. So I think the re-rating part of the trade has played out to my mind, but this represents sustained growth business. So I think one should be able to make returns in line with the earnings growth, and banks I think should grow their earnings medium term slightly ahead than the Nifty. So to that extent I think there is still room for some outperformance there.
Who has the right to win in the financials?
My vote would be for the large big brands that have scale, that have good technology platforms, that have a good CASA mix, and so my vote would be for, I mean that's an obvious one, and there could also be other smaller niche companies which can do extremely well, like some small banks are doing quite well. But this clearly is the biggest piece where I think the outlook is quite decent.
You started buying into State Bank of India when they reported a record loss like never before, I think 6-7 years ago. For the quarter gone by and for the year gone by, they've reported a profit which is at a record number and the second highest in the history of any corporate. What is the trajectory for, let's say, a bank like State Bank of India or ICICI Bank, and what makes you so bullish?
In fact, I used to discuss with many people that State Bank will do more than 50,000 crores profits, and they used to joke, but then they texted me back, look, you were right. So I think the bank has done extremely well, and other than one product category maybe or two, they have actually not lost a share in any of the products. So I think it's a really well managed bank. The technology platform is extremely good, and with every few years they improve. So I think it's a future fit bank. They should continue to do quite well, and as I said, large banks that have good technology platforms, think of it this way: when you enter the world of digital banking, a large bank is in a great position to write a very small loan or to write a loan in a remote location also, because it is technology that is working for you. So I think the current digital banking environment, the digital environment, it favors the large banks immensely. The limitations of physical space and resources is gone, and they are best placed to leverage this environment to my mind.